Hey there, I'm Matt, and this is my garage. Today I'm going to be pulling out a couple of old woodworking hand planes that I've been accumulating from estate sales and show you some of the different things that I do between a restoration and a preservation. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the garage on this snowy February weekend. I was going through some of the old planes that I've been accumulating and pulled out a couple that we can do a cleanup and restoration on. First one, we got a Miller's Falls number 1455B. It's a low angle block plane. It's still got most of the black enamel left on it, except for the hood on the lever cap. So I think we might see what we can preserve on that one. The other one is a Stanley number 75 bullnose rabbit plane, or for those of our friends across the pond, a rebate plane. And it has seen better days. It has got a ton of rust on it. Doesn't look like a lot of pitting, just a lot of surface rust. Most of the paint is gone. So I think we might just do a complete repaint and restore on that guy. So why don't you come on around this side and we'll take a look at him and get started. All right, so up first, we got the Stanley number 75 bullnose rabbit plane. It's an inexpensive plane made by Stanley starting in 1879 all the way up through 1974 in the United States, and I think it was made in England a little bit after that as well. It's an inexpensive plane. The original black Japanning covering on it, paint on it, is long since worn off. There's a lot of surface rust. And one of the things in the restoration community, how far do you take a restoration? Do you truly restore it? Do you just clean it up? Do you do some cosmetic changes on it? Do you try and preserve it? So we're going to do a couple different examples today. Neither one of these planes are particularly valuable. They're nothing collector grade, and they're nothing extremely rare. But we're going to do a couple different things with them. On the Stanley 75 rabbit plane, we're going to do a complete tear down, strip and repaint, make it look as close to new as we can. We'll put a new edge on the iron and see what we get out of that. First, we'll take the lever cap out. Iron slides out. And there's two pieces, top and the bottom, held on by the screw at the top here. Earlier versions, the washer was brass. Top slides off, held on by four of these little wings here. And this allows the front would slide back and forth and allow the mouth of the plane to adjust. All right, so while the Stanley 75 is getting its paint stripping done, we can start to work on the Miller's Falls 1455B. It's most likely a late 1960s because it still has the steel adjustment knob in the back. Towards the end of production, they switched over to plastic. Don't know why they would do that, but the knob is still steel, so probably late 1960s. We have a knob that we have to replace, drill a hole through, find a screw that fits into the threads here. The hood, the lever cap, the iron, still in really good shape. Still has the Miller's Falls logo on it. We can take off the adjustment knob here, clean that up. And this one is going to be more of a preservation. Now, it's not an expensive one. Like I said, it's not a rare plane, but it's good practice. If you do come across an antique or a really old or rare tool and you want to practice on preserving it versus stripping it down and restoring it to like new condition, you can take one of these older ones and clean it up and do more of a preservation on it. So we're going to keep what's left of the paint. We're going to clean up the steel and wax it up and see what we end up with. So let's get started cleaning it up. All right, so cleaned up, got all the grease off. Now we can see what we're working with. And the patina on the hood, that's fine. We can work with that. But the rust on the lever here, that we need to remove. And it's pinned in, and the pin is pinned over on the other side. So here's the dilemma that you always face when you're trying to preserve as much of the original as you can. Do you take that pin out and have to make a new one? Can you save that pin? I think we might try and use our Dremel and get it out and be able to salvage it. If not, I could make a new pin to put in there. But that's one of the things you're faced with when trying to preserve and save as much as you can. And it's out and on the ground. Hopefully there's enough of the rivet left that we can pin it back over. Okay, so we're done with the wire wheel on the Miller's Falls low angle block pane. And here's the difference, at least for me, in restoring something completely like we're doing on the Stanley 75, where we're stripping it down, repainting it, polishing, maybe re-nickel plating any of the pieces. For the Miller's Falls, since we're going to do more of a preservation, we just basically want to stabilize it and preserve what's there for the future. So even though we hit it with a wire wheel, like on the adjustment knob here, we're not polishing it bright, new, shiny, give it a look like that. We're going to keep some of the patina on it and not go full-on restore. Same thing with the lever cap here. We just knocked off a little bit of the rust, and we're going to keep the look of the paint that's been wearing away. The blade, on the other hand, any of the working surfaces, that's fine, that they're going to need sanded or polished more. So the iron is going to get its treatment and the blade sharpened. Then we're going to work on the knob. So getting there. All right, all done with the paint stripping. Metal came out pretty nice. We're going to give it one last touch up of soak in Evapo-Rust, just to make sure the rest of the rust is out of the crevices. Normally, like I said, I would, on a full restoration, I would clean up these casting marks, but the whole thing is so rough. You can tell by the texture here that as soon as I start filing down any of the leftover casting marks, that's going to create a smooth spot and stand out. So we'll just leave it as is and get it ready for paint. All right, so the major cleaning is done now, and whether we're just preserving the plane or doing a refinish on it, we still need to lap the sole on the plane. Just make sure that it's 100% smooth front to back, side to side. So we're just going to do that on some sandpaper. All right, so we've got the bottoms lapped. The steel's looking good. There's still a little spot here in the middle, but it's close enough for the work that we're going to be doing. Bottom looks good. I don't think if this is late 60s, I don't think the bottom was ever lapped, so much better than it was. The Stanley 75, we got that bottom lapped up real nice, smooth, all the way front to back, side to side. One last thing that you want to do after lapping the bottom, you're going to end up with some sharp edges from the sanding. So just take yourself a regular file and knock off the corners. Doesn't take much, just a light touch. Knock off the corners on the sole. Now, iron caps are the same way, whether it's this little guy for the Stanley 75 or the hooded one for the Miller's Falls. We want to make sure that the surfaces that are touching the iron are smooth and true also. So we're just going to run those across the sandpaper too. All right, well, we got the rivet put back in. Let's do some peening, see if we can get it to catch. So while the Stanley 75 is getting painted, we can work on getting a new knob onto the Miller's Falls here. The knob that I have, it's a very similar knob to what was originally on it. It just doesn't fit. The opening needs to be reamed out, widened a little bit. So let's get to work on that. That'll work. Hopefully there's a screw in here somewhere I can use. Well, it didn't take too long, but I did find a screw that would work. It's flathead screw, appropriate for the time. The threads do fit into the base, and it's long enough that it'll get through the knob, and I can countersink the flathead down into the top, very similar to what the original looked like. So we got ourselves a screw. Now we just got to drill the hole into the knob. All right, so we're in the home stretch with the Miller's Falls here, and all that's left is really to reassemble the pieces and put a new edge on the blade. But first, we're going to coat all the parts in some paste wax. There's a lot of exposed metal that we've cleaned up, so we want to make sure we protect that since we're not going to be doing any painting or bluing on it, and that includes some paste wax on the knob as well. So we're going to get the paste wax on, sharpen up the blade, and we'll call this one done. Now the underside of the iron Getting there. As I thought, the iron for the Stanley 75 was way out of square. So I just put it on the I put it on the 1x30 sanding belt. Got it square back up, and got a new surface put on it. So we're going to go through the 400 and the 1200 grits on the diamond stones and put a new edge on it. All right, so that's going to wrap up the restoration of this Stanley number 75 little bullnose rabbit plane between 1935 and 1960. What we did was we stripped off all the old paint, gave it a new coat of black gloss paint. We had to square up the iron, and we put a new edge on the bevel, clean up the sole real nice. The adjustment knobs, they were pretty good. We didn't have to do any nickel plating on those. Really just address that blade and take care of the rest of the body. The Miller's Falls number 1455B, probably from the late 60s. We did find a knob. We put a knob on it and left it pretty much intact. We polished up the rest of the steel, took off some of the most obvious rust. We did take care of the sole on this one, put a new edge on that bevel, and got it into a usable condition. So last thing to do is let's put them to use. Let's take it over to the bench and give it a try out on some wood. All right, so up first on this piece of pine, we'll take the Miller's Falls low angle block plane. Not bad. I'd say that's good curl. All right, up next, let's see if we can get this Stanley 75 to cut some curls. Not bad. It's definitely a little tougher to use than the low angle block plane. Plus I got big hands, this thing's so small. Here we go. All right, well, that about wraps it up here in the garage. Really appreciate everybody hanging out with me as we took care of a restoration and a preservation on a couple of old woodworking hand planes. Be sure to hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, Make sure you subscribe. That way you catch all the future episodes coming out of the garage. Again, thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.